right, let's start with approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions? All right.
I'll make a motion to accept.
All right, we've got a motion.
Second.
Second. All right, motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now motion passes. All right, time for public comment period. Let's see. And Dr. Jones, I read the new
Yeah.
from verbatim. Okay. Okay. In accordance with School Board Policies BDDH and KD, any resident of Powhatan County may address the board during public comment. At this time, citizens are invited to address the board. When it is your turn to speak, please come to the podium and wait to be recognized by the chair. Each individual will have 3 minutes, and delegations will have 5 minutes to provide their comments. Please respect this time limitation so others may address the board. A maximum of 30 minutes will be designated for public comment this evening. Please address your comments to the board as a whole and not individual board members. The audience or staff, and please begin by stating your name. The board requests that all speakers maintain an environment that promotes listening and respect. The board will not respond or address issues raised by speakers during the course of public comment, and speakers are reminded that the board chair is authorized to stop or remove any speaker who uses vulgar, disruptive, or threatening language. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines will be greatly appreciated. So the public comment period is open for anyone who wishes to speak to us. All right. Seeing no movement, we will close the public comment period, and we'll begin with our first presentation. Dr. Jones?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman. The first presentation today is an update on our strategic plan. The board's well aware that we are finishing up year one of the strategic plan, and our goal is for the next few meetings to highlight progress made towards each of our 4 goals for the board, to break it up so there's not so much information at one meeting. And given the fact that we're starting a new school year and the hiring season is just behind us, we decided to start with Goal 2, which is leveraging talent. And Dr. Meredith Parker is here to give you an update on progress made towards that goal and to remind the board about the goal and some of the objectives within it. Dr. Parker?
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Goal 2. As a reminder, Goal 2 is to attract and retain high-quality staff across the division and to drive personalized teaching and learning. Within each of the goals, and as Dr. Jones said, there are 4 goals within our strategic plan. Each goal has key performance objectives that will help us reach that goal. There are 5 KPOs for Goal 2, and they are listed on the slide. The first is to identify and secure optimal talent through robust sourcing strategies that yield the greatest return on investment, provide a competitive compensation and benefits plan, promote high standards and expectations of all staff to share the responsibility of advancing the mission, build instructional and leadership capacity with high-quality professional development, and the last KPO, to achieve and preserve a culture of equity and fairness, a customer service mindset while improving working conditions for all PCPS employees. So let's look at the first KPO. Identify and secure optimal talent. This KPO kind of has 2 parts to it. First, to identify our talent, and then to secure our talent. Within each objective, we have indicators to track the progress made through over the course of the strategic plan. Good evening.
Hello.
In terms of identifying our talent, this past year we attended 10 local college and university job fairs, And our biggest return on investment, which is a piece and a large piece of this objective, is to really look at not only where we're identifying them, but where we're getting a return on our investment. Our best was our very own Powhatan Job Fair that was held here in the division. We interviewed 68 candidates for teaching or instructional positions, and we hired 8 of those 68 that we interviewed. We also were able to interview employees for candidates for Sodexo positions as well as transportation. Also, in looking at our sourcing of where new hires indicate that they have heard about positions, a large number is through our district website. That could be both our Powhatan website as well as our Talent Ed jobs website, which will give candidates an alert to be able to notice whenever jobs are posted, because we do have many people that live within our surrounding communities and within our division who are waiting for that job to become available. Also, our employee referrals is a large source of where we receive our new talent for the division. Many employees share with their colleagues about what Powhatan has to offer, and they're waiting for a job to come open, and so we want to continue to cultivate that pipeline through our employee referrals. The second piece of this objective is to secure the talent. Once we've identified them, hiring those employees, and then keeping them. One indicator, or a KPI, the number of teachers who report leaving to go to another surrounding school division. This past year, our first year of the strategic plan, only 3 employees in their separation paperwork noted that they were leaving to go to another teaching position in a surrounding school division. Those 3, I will say, that was noted that a commute, they did have a longer commute, and we're looking to shorten that of those 3 employees or teachers. A second indicator, the number of teachers who are hired with experience in other school divisions. We have a large number of staff that come to us with experience. Dr. Jones at our New Teacher Academy performed an exercise where he had our new teachers stand up based on the number of years of service or teaching experience that they had previously before coming and starting their career with us in Powhatan. And it was clear very quickly to see that many of the people standing up had 20, 15, 10 years of teaching experience, and we're excited to begin teaching here in Powhatan. So many of our new teachers are not actually new to the profession, but new to our division. And this past school year, 16 of our 26 new teachers that were hired had previous experience in other school divisions. Other ways that we secure our talent is through our New Teacher Academy and keeping them and retaining our staff. Our new teachers are able to be inducted into our school division and our practices in a way that's outside of the teacher week, and they're able to take a slower pace at getting to learn a lot of our technology systems and the way we do things here in Powhatan. Also, for our new teachers, we're getting ready to start up our ABCs of PCPS, which are year-long institutes that occur monthly for our new teachers, so that they're able to connect with mentors, be able to ask questions, and get the support that they need on a regular basis throughout the year. Last year, we also started our Helping Hands recognition, where anyone is able to nominate any PCPS employee who is inspiring, empowering, or innovating, and be able to recognize them, and they were recognized here at the school board meeting, and we'll continue that this year to recognize those staff who are going above and beyond. And then lastly, these efforts speak to our low attrition rate, which is about at 7%. The second KPO is to provide competitive compensation and benefit plan. This slide speaks toward the salary study that was shared with you last school year and the year prior, pre-strategic plan, the 17-18 year. So this data is not new to you. It was presented by Mr. Johns last school year, but you can see that we're moving in the right direction. This is 12. This is where Powhatan ranked of 12 of our surrounding school divisions, 13 total, including us, and the ranking for the numbers of years of service. For competitive compensation and benefits, the benefits part of the objective, listed are many of our benefits that we do offer. Most of the time, people are going to think about our health benefits, our life insurance, Section 125 optional benefits that are available to our employees, or 403Bs. But it's important to also remember and consider those benefits that our teachers really value and really love, and that's things such as our tuition reimbursement, the leave that's provided to our employees before and after childcare, options for employees to bring their children to our schools if they live outside of the division, and flexible work locations on work days. In addition to the list here, we're going to be having a comprehensive benefits analysis to occur this year, looking at Section 125 benefits and health care rates to be sure that we're staying competitive and offering the best rates to our employees, and that'll be happening this school year. The third key performance objective is to promote high standards and expectations of all staff and share the responsibility for advancing the mission. There are two KPIs in this objective. The first is the percentage of teachers receiving an overall summative rating of proficient or exemplary. When teachers receive their end-of-year evaluations, they are ranked in 4 categories: exemplary, proficient, needing improvement, or unacceptable. And 98% of our teachers this past year received proficient or exemplary. Also, an indicator for this objective is the number of staff that have National Board certification. Historically, we have had 4 staff members that have National Board teaching certification. This has been something that our teachers are interested in pursuing, so this school year, this past school year, the 18-19 school year, we started a partnership with VCU Center for Teacher Leadership, and they have provided an opportunity for our teachers to be able to be accepted into a cohort that supports teachers going through the National Board process. Our Powhatan teachers that were interested attended informational sessions. They completed a rigorous application process. They were selected and approved by division staff to be accepted into this cohort, as well as VCU staff. The 6 teachers have already started this summer work on working toward their National Board certification. For those of you that don't know, National Board certification is a voluntary, rigorous certification process for advanced teaching credentials that go beyond what the state requires. It also sets a national standard for what accomplished teachers should know and what accomplished teachers should be doing in the classroom. So we hope to be able to see that number grow, if not even double, by the end of the next 2 years. Also, with VCU Center for Teacher Leadership, they have given an opportunity for 9 of our teachers to be able to be clinically trained faculty. And we've got 9 teachers that have spent their Saturdays and evenings working through that process to be able to help support our new teachers and train. To be able to help train and support our new teachers and our struggling teachers who need coaching and support in that capacity. The next objective is high-quality professional development to build instructional and leadership capacity. In addition to the Center for Teacher Leadership opportunities through our partnership with Virginia Commonwealth University, they have also accepted teachers into their SEED grant, which stands for Supporting Effective Educator Development, and many of our teachers have taken opportunities to be able to attend professional development there through that grant this past year. We've also started and continued our administrative aid program at our secondary schools, where teachers are getting on-the-job, real-world experience to learn and kind of work as a training ground for individuals who are looking at administration or other leadership opportunities outside of the classroom. Also with that, summer interns, teachers who are looking at adding certifications or endorsements or additional degrees that have intern hours, we're supporting them throughout the process as well. New this year, which will be the second year of our strategic plan, Dr. Alejandro talked to you last board meeting about our Empower Conference that allowed choice and differentiated PD for our teachers. We're also rolling out the DL 421 Professional Growth Learning Plan for teachers to determine their own professional learning goals while understanding and promoting the uses of DL 421 practices. Also happening this year, we're continuing to focus on the embedded supports that exist for teachers within PCPS. Those embedded supports are those individuals who provide professional development on a regular basis outside of their teaching or as part of their teaching and contract responsibilities. Those people would be our STEM coaches, our math coaches, our reading coaches, ITRTs, librarians, all of those day-to-day people that provide professional development on an ongoing basis to our employees. The indicator, the KPI for this goal, we used the 2019 Virginia Working Conditions School Climate Survey issued to staff, teachers, and students for the first time this spring in 2019. And in that survey, teachers rated on average the extent to which professional development provides differentiated ongoing services to effectively support student learning. And our teachers rated this at a 3.9, which was the same average of the region. And for your information, the state average was a 4.2. So we are close and in line. And the last KPO for Goal 2 is to achieve and preserve a culture of equity and fairness and customer service mindset while improving working conditions for all PCPS employees. Many of the objectives and the work that's been done to meet the previous objectives really speak toward this one as well. But in addition, we have the data from the Virginia Working Conditions and School Climate Survey as well. The KPI, the indicator for this, is the question asked on that of overall, my school is a good place to work. And our teachers rated on average that yes, their school is a good place to work at a 93% approval rating. There are also several other categories that were pulled from the survey that relate to this KPO, and they are listed at the top. And you'll note that Powhatan teachers rated the approval at or above the regional average in all of those areas, and equal to the state average in 4 of the 8 categories. Also speaking to this objective, last school year, we provided customer service, professional development to all support staff on a teacher PD day in February. That will be continuing, and we will build upon that work and continue to do that with our support staff and those that provide customer service to our stakeholders on a regular basis. Our Human Resources Department is excited about all the work that we've done and working toward and the progress that we've made in Goal 2. And at this time, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, and thank you, Ms. Zemel. I appreciate you starting the meeting, and I apologize to the members and those in attendance. There was a very bad traffic crash at Westchester, and I sat in traffic for quite a while. So I appreciate you starting the meeting without us. You did a great job. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you'll let the minutes reflect, I believe I arrived about 5 minutes after 5, just so you'll note that. So questions for our presenter or comments? Ms. Zemel.
I'd like to say that I'm glad that, we do the ABCs about our school system for the teachers, and that it's a year-long program. When you're new, you have lots of questions, and not just the first week or the first month. So that's nice to know that we do that. I'm also pleased to note that you said 98% of the teachers in our district receive a summative rating of proficient or exemplary. That's nice to know, and know that we've got some excellent teachers. The only concern I had was slide 10, the demand on teachers' time. That one was 3.7, and I would just like to know, do they give you more of what qualifies in that category?
I can pull out the questions that teachers responded to be able to get that average rating for that category from the Department of Education.
Because it just, I would like to see if we can, I know there's some things that we cannot do because it just happens that we can't, but I'd like to see us work on that if we could. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Emel. Other questions or comments? Mrs. Ayers?
The overall my school was a good place to work. Was this, were this just teachers or were these?
This was
teachers-
just from the teachers'
it was
rating
just
scale.
from teachers.
They did, there was a separate for staff and a separate for students. I'm not sure what the questions were
I think
on
the
those.
93% is wonderful, and that makes me really, really happy, but it concerns me a little that we had even any percent. I mean, it just doesn't bode well for a teacher not to be happy where they're teaching because that affects our children. So that to me is a little unfortunate that would be the case. But what, you don't know what that is, so that's all. But thank you for your work, too.
Mr. Cole?
Mr. Chairman, a couple comments. I'm glad to see opportunities for exemplary faculty to be able to grow even further in the clinical faculty training. Sounds like that's part of that. And I think it's great that they're going to be able to help coach beyond the coaches that we already have. Just a couple questions about, you said professional development, the overall rating was pretty strong, but are there pieces of the professional development that they like better? Or are there pieces that they just don't care about at all? You probably have that information. I just want to make sure we're collecting that and we're responding to those comments. Is that true?
There were several questions within that made up from that Department of Education survey. There were several questions on professional development that made up that overall average rating, dealing with, are you provided choice? Are you provided ongoing supports once given the professional development? And so there are different areas, but overall, that was the rating.
If I could add, Mr. Chairman, it's interesting to note on that one, because that comes from the Teacher Climate Survey, but we also do a survey of every professional development activity that we do, and by and large, the feedback that we get from the individual professional development activities is stronger than that. So,
That's what I was getting at.
yeah, I think it's, we can pull that data and look at that as well, and I think that's part of the issue with relying too much on a one-time survey that's more comprehensive in nature instead of looking at specific activities.
And the other comment, Mr. Chairman, on the new teachers' orientation and assimilation into our division. The data on teacher retention is pretty dismal across the country, so I'm glad that we're doing much better than that. And I'm assuming, once again, that we're talking to those new teachers at the end of year one to see if there's anything else that they think we should be doing to help orient our teachers.
Last year, we did a survey at the end of our new teacher induction, which is where the teachers go out on the bus tour and they get their computers set up. We did a survey at the end of New Teacher Academy and also at the end of our ABCs of PCPS, and I used that data to tweak classes that were offered, the institutes for the ABCs for this current school year, as well as to make adjustments within the New Teacher Academy as well. So we are speaking with them and hearing what they're saying and really provide a lot of good information for us, since it's been a long time since it was my first year in the classroom.
Good. And if we're not doing it, I'd suggest at the end of the year, we go back, we try to gather some data from them, whether it's in a survey form or whether it's just informally, to see what, see what their impression is, to see whether they think we're doing a good job of they feel welcome at the end of the year and feel like that they've been supported as they've gone along.
So Mr. Cole, what they're often called stay interviews. Instead of the exit interviews, the employees that choose to stay, you go back to them at the end of the first year. Why are you staying? What's good? What's working for you? Tell us what the positive things are, and then how do we spend that? And I agree with you. I had a note on that as well. If we're not doing that, we ought to think about that, because those are ones that want to stay with us. So let's see what we're doing right.
Overall,
I apologize for taking the time, but that's...
I just want us to continue doing the good things, and if there are other things we can do, let's do them, because recruiting teachers, as you know, is very difficult.
Yeah.
And we want to keep them when we get them here. So anything we
Exactly.
can do, that we can do to support them and help them feel like this is the right place to be, then just go for it. Thank you.
Yep.
Other comments or questions? I had a couple. Before I make them, I just want to say to you that with the unemployment rate where it is and with the experience of our peers in other counties, this is very impressive.
It really is.
Yeah, it's a lot of good work being done, and it speaks to the quality of our staff. Let me ask you a couple questions, though. So talking about slide 10, where it's the overall, and this is from our survey, overall, my school is a good place to work. We have and there's 101%, so we rounded some numbers here and there to get to whole numbers, and I appreciate that. But looking at what we have, there's only 80% that agree or strongly agree that overall my school is a good place to work.
Correct.
The remainder are either somewhat agree or in some category of a disagree. So that's around 20% of our teachers that are somewhat agree or less. So how do we drill down into those numbers? What steps are we taking to talk to those people to see, what needs to happen? What's different? What are you not happy with? Because when you go back and look at our performance evaluation numbers that you talked about, there's only 2% that aren't proficient, I think is the category and above. So these are employees that are, by performance, at least performing at a proficient level, but then when they answer the survey, this is how they answer the survey. So how do we get back to those types of information to figure out what we need to do differently? And maybe that's a question for you or Dr. Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it's an anonymous survey, so it's hard for us to identify those individuals, but certainly we're always getting feedback from staff and talking to individual staff members about where they are and if they're happy and if they're not happy. Administrators have an open door, and when there are concerns that a person has, then certainly they can express that to their administrator or to anybody at central office. So those are some of the things we're doing. We could certainly look at what else we're doing. And again, I think this survey is very valuable and certainly something that we want to have, but I'll repeat this, it's a one-time survey. Somebody could have had a bad day that day, could have had a altercation or a disagreement with a fellow staff member that could have tainted what they were going to say when they took this survey. But it is something that we want all of our employees to be happy and to think that where they're working is a good place to work. So we're going to continue to do what we can to get that information. So we'll put our heads together and see if there's anything else that we can do.
Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate your comments, and I do understand that it is the day the survey is taken that does impact the results, but the 20% struck me that was a fairly large number. So if there's some way that we can get back to this, even if it's a free text field where they could offer some, why'd you answer this the way you did sort of question, that might be helpful for you or for Dr. Jones or the principals or the administration, just what do they like and what do they don't? Because the economy is very good right now, and there are a lot of other school districts, they look at the quality of our staff, and it's, we talk about this a lot. We're trying to retain people. We want to retain the good staff. So even if that retained 3 or 4 people that we really want to keep, it would be worth the time.
Absolutely.
So,
Good idea.
all right, and that's my only comment, I think, at this point. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you very much. I found that very informative. I appreciate you putting it together.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks, Dr. Parker.
Dr. Jones?
Yeah, we will, next month, in October, we're going to do goal 1, which is the big instructional goal. We waited on that one, because we thought starting a new school year, it made sense to talk about the incoming talent and with our new teachers and new staff. But also, we're still waiting on some data from the state to be finalized before we could do goal 1 fully, so we should have that by October. We'll also provide you in October. We hit on some of our KPIs or key performance indicators here related to goal 1, but we talked earlier about having one document that's kind of an overview of those KPIs, and we will have that for you in October as well. Again, we're waiting on some data from the state to finalize that, but have a working document ready and just waiting to plug in some numbers. So you'll be able to get that for all 4 goals in terms of progress that we've made in areas where we still have work to do.
Thank you, sir.
And then our next presentation is the school calendar and opening day of the school year update. We introduced this last month, and Dr. Alejandro has been working hard on it, getting some information from other localities. A survey's gone out to our community, students, parents, and employees, and that's going to be open for the next week, but we've got an update on where we are at this point for you. Dr. Alejandro?
Thank you. This is, again, as he said, just an update, just a reminder, what we were looking at is the opportunity to start 2 weeks early based on new legislation that came forward in July, and it gives local control to the school calendar, the start date and the end date. This was information that I presented to you last month about where local school divisions start and end their school year for the 1920 school year. As you can see, the pre-Labor Day start are all of our contiguous counties other than Chesterfield, and then the 4 major regional Richmond region divisions are all after Labor Day, along with Powhatan. Just what's been going on in the interim, so that you all know, as Dr. Jones mentioned, there was a calendar survey that is in your documents that's available on board docs. It has a variety of questions. It actually took the items from the presentation that I gave in last month's board meeting and used that so that people would actually see the data that was presented, and then they could comment based on the data that was presented at the board meeting rather than just having what they've heard in the community or through friends and neighbors. So hopefully they were able to use that as they answered the survey. It was given to all parents, to all secondary students. We issued the secondary students the survey through Schoology, so they received it that way. Our middle schoolers don't have email addresses anymore, so they received it through Schoology, not School Messenger. To date, we have over 1,300 responses already. Just for comparison's sake, my last 3 calendar surveys had fewer than 200 responses.
What was the number again?
1,300. And again, as Dr. Jones says, it will be open through the 16th for people to respond. Along with that, there was an opportunity for them to provide additional comments that they would want us to consider, and there already have been 300 comments, additional comments logged. The plan with those comments is to create a consolidated summary of those comments, but also answers to frequently asked questions, because a lot of times they aren't just comments, but they're questions that they are looking for some clarity on. So I'll provide that as well. Got some information, also received some information from our neighboring divisions. Chesterfield has not finalized their process yet, though in speaking with staff, and they did say it was all right for me to share this information publicly, they are creating pre- and post-Labor Day calendars. Their usual process, their committee process is a little different than ours. They go to a teacher committee, and then it's presented to the superintendent and the leadership team from the teacher committee, and then they share that with the school board, and they anticipate to review and approve in November. So that's their timeline, if that's something that's important to our community. And then Hanover, Henrico, and Richmond have issued either formal statements or informal statements that they don't anticipate a change for the 2021 school year at this time. Also, this is similar to a slide presented last month. In the top right-hand corner gives you some background information about the calendar committee as it stood at the end of July, our 25 members, what we did in that calendar committee. But I did want to provide you some updates, and there's actually been further updates to this in the last few days after this was published for public consumption. By district, you can see each of the district membership. These are not going to add up to a total because some of them overlap parents and staff and things like that. But District 2 now has 5 members and District 5 now has 3 members. So that's 2 additional members that we received there. By role, we now have 27 parents, 18 staff members by role, and a total of 41 members so far. And I pushed out an invitation to folks to participate. The next meeting will be on the 19th at 5 p.m. at Powhatan Middle School, and that is prior to one of their parent nights, so hopefully that will also generate some interest. Certainly the public is welcome to that, but the official committee members, you all have a listing of those committee members at your seats this evening so that you can review those as needed. Finally, with that, that's the update for the calendar group of the calendar committee. And that's where we stand currently.
All right, thank you, Dr. Alejandro. Questions for Dr. Alejandro or Dr. Jones? Or comments? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Jones?
Yes, first thing in the superintendent's report is student activity fund audit for the year that ended June 30th, 2019. Mr. Johns is here to give a update on those audit activities and the results for each of our schools. Mr. Johns?
Yes, sir, and good evening. Each year, the external audit of student activity funds is presented to the board. The format of this audit is the same each year, so you have seen these documents before. There are 3 attachments to this. One is a letter to the school board. The second is the financial report for each school, and the last are suggested comments. This year, we had a fairly clean audit, which I'm pleased to report. 3 of our schools did not have any findings or comments, and that's Powhatan High School, Flat Rock Elementary School, and Pocahontas Elementary School. The 2 schools with comments, the middle school and Powhatan Elementary, basically had 3 comments each. And for Pocahontas Middle, they had 2 comments on cash receipts and 1 on cash disbursements. And Powhatan Elementary had 3 as well. These comments and corrective action have been reviewed with the principal and bookkeeper. And so at this point, I'll take any questions if there are, but this is a routine report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johns. Questions or comments for either Mr. Johns or Dr. Jones?
One comment, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, congratulations on what it looks like a really good audit. And, once again, I want to commend the staff that's involved with handling the amount of money that we handle and the fact that we seem to be doing a very good job about that. And I know that in response to an incident we had a few years ago, you're doing some things yourself. Would you mind just reviewing the things that you're doing to try to make sure that, that we're being as diligent as possible with our funds?
Certainly, and be glad to do that. A couple of years ago, we switched the student activity fund programs from desktop to cloud-based programs. So me and one of my staff members, as well as principals, can go on that program and look at what's going on with each individual school, look to see that they have in fact balanced their bank statement in a timely manner, look at the balance of individual accounts and those type things. And so that has added the oversight to it. But we have for years gone out before the audit and reviewed things with the bookkeepers to make sure that pretty much everything is addressed. And for some schools like the high school, because there's so much volume there, and for the high school to not have any comments or findings is a really good thing, as you just mentioned. But we will go out twice a year and we'll review in detail the disbursements and those type things to make sure that the bookkeepers haven't missed anything. And so we will do that. We will provide training, annual training with the bookkeepers as is needed. And so those are the type things that we do. And bookkeepers routinely, because they know we're involved, they will routinely ask questions on anything that's new so that, we can address it before they do it.
Thank you. In that report, they talk some about what they're going to do, but they also have that disclaimer on almost every page. It says, this audit does not give you we're not making any assurances that something bad isn't going on.
Right.
So I want, I guess I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can on the backside to make sure that that's the case. And I know we are, but I like to publicly have that reassurance every time one of these audits comes up.
Well, let me add a couple of comments then to emphasize that. Years ago, we updated our Student Activity Funds Procedures Manual, and some of the specific requirements in there are, one, that the bank reconciliation has to be done by the 15th of each month, and they either send a notice into us or we verify it by going onto that school's website. But the principal, who has to sign off on monthly reports such as the bank recon, they are required to look at that bank statement, initial the ending balance on that bank statement, at the same time they do the reconciliation report with the system. They also are required to review all of the checks that have been processed to make sure that they all seem legitimate and that there were 2 signatures on every check and those type things, so that if something were going on, hopefully those specific requirements are going to help the principal recognize or, something. And so those things I think are very helpful too.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cole. Other questions or comments?
I do,
Mrs.
Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Zeman.
I noticed attachment 2 at the high school under the, let's see, this would be page 13.
Okay.
Under the athletics there, it has every sport, but I don't see football, and I was just wondering, why football wasn't listed as a category.
Let's see,
So it's almost to the bottom of the,
right, it's on
Okay.
11 and 12 are the athletics.
okay, I'm
and-
sorry, on our,
Right.
it's on slide 13 on our presentation.
Oh,
But
okay.
yes, it is,
All right,
it is 11 there, and it says Series 3,
Right,
and then it lists the sports: track, swim team, baseball, basketball, cheerleading, field hockey, and then on the next page it goes on to the other sports. And I was just wondering if it was somewhere else, or, why isn't it here? Because it is a student activity, is it not?
it is, and it does have to be in here somewhere. I'm not seeing it right now either, but I'll look into it and let you know.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Zeman. Other questions or comments?
If I might,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that I've been concerned about for a long time is the fact that we have not entered the 21st century with being able to pay at the high schools, at least till it's convenient for people, or, pay fees and things. I know we can do it, but a lot of parents are not opting into it because of the fee that's tacked on to it.
Right, right.
I just wonder whether it might be worthwhile for the superintendents, for the school board association, to go out and look to see if we can collectively find some vendor who might be willing to do it for a lot less money than 4 or 5% of whatever we're paying right now. When I talk to parents, they say, for one small fee, that's okay, but when I'm paying, if I have to get up to $100, that 4% begins to make some difference. So I would like to see us, collectively, as board members, talk to the VSBA and superintendents and whoever your group is, start talking and even talking to Mr. Ware and Delegate Ware and Senator Studman next week about the possibility of the Commonwealth beginning to take some of that over. Because it's not just schools that are taking fees.
Right.
When I want to pay my property taxes, I can pay them online, but the fee is exorbitant. Nobody's going to do that. So it would make sense to me if those fees drive our revenue, then we ought to be making it a little bit easier for people to pay them than what we're doing right now. So that's an aside comment, but I just think it's something we ought to look at.
Can I also add to that, Mr. Cole? My husband was in charge of doing that this year, and he didn't bring the checkbook, so, and of course, if I was there, the checkbook would have been there and it would all have been done. But anyway, he ended up doing that. But he said it was hard to do, you know, Mr. IT man here, and that he even had a teacher help him, and the teacher was having trouble too. So we might look into something that not only is cheaper, but that is easy, what do you say, easy,
User-friendly.
thank you, user-friendly, yes.
For old people like us.
Yeah, well, there you go, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Zeman. Mrs. Ayers.
I had looked at this, and I'm not sure, but I was thinking that the football, just because of the amount of money on page 13, Ms. Emal, what you were talking about, maybe football, or maybe that's all athletics together, but that's quite a bit larger sum than any of the other sports are, so, and like I said, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's the
Okay, are we 13 on our slide or 13 on
13
his?
on our slide, and
13.
it's under Series 3, and it just says athletics.
Uh-huh. Possibly that's it.
So,
Who
I mean,
knows?
I'm just guessing, so I don't know that for sure, but that's what my thought
We'll
process
check
was.
and get back to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll check and let you know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so perhaps that's something you can share with us, do your comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. All right, anything else from Mr. Johns? All right, thank you very much, sir. All right, next item on the agenda is under superintendent's report, but it's the school board self-evaluation discussion. And this is in response to the policy AFA that we enacted, I don't know, a month or so ago. And what it is an opportunity for at a regularly scheduled meeting at the beginning of the fiscal year, school board chairman shall include an item entitled Board Self-Evaluation or Discussion. This will permit board members to enter into board self-assessment for the purposes of examining the effectiveness of its activities and governance, identifying ways to improve operations and effectiveness, and building unity as a positive public relations image for the benefit of the schools and the community the board members were elected to serve. So with those three categories in mind, I have a couple of items that I thought we could discuss, and I think that will begin the discussion, and certainly any other members can suggest items or raise topics that they would also like to consider during this period. What I would begin with is a discussion simply of the meetings. Right now, we structure on many occasions our workshops and meetings as separate activities. We break them in very distinct ways. We have recognitions at the meetings, and oftentimes the recognitions will fall at the beginning of the meeting. We have a fairly large attendance group here, and as soon as the recognitions are over, most of those people leave. So I think that that's something we've talked about a little bit as a board, very informally, individually, perhaps one at a time. But I thought that might be something that as a board we could address tonight and provide some guidance to Dr. Jones on how we'd like to proceed with that, if that's agreeable. Are we satisfied with the way that that's operating now, or are there some ways we'd like to see it done differently?
I have a
There.
question just
Yes,
to
ma'am.
you regarding that. What would what is your feeling about that? Would you recommend having the recognitions later in the meeting?
Well, I think I have two thoughts. The first one is that we hold them until 7 o'clock, and I do wonder if it might not be better to have them earlier in the evening to permit the parents, if that would work. And then the other thought that I had is that is a large group of people. Sometimes there are things that, would be nice to have that representation here to discuss some of these items. So at what point do you have them, and how do you do that? Because I don't want it to be onerous for the people that are being recognized, but at the same time, it is an opportunity for the board to show them the recognition they deserve. So that was my thought, and I don't know that I bring you a solution as much as I bring an item that I know individually I have had conversations with several of you about, and we've talked about what would be the best way to do this. Perhaps the best way is exactly how we try to do it now, but I would open it up at this point.
I would think, just because I've had some phone calls, after we've recognized students, and when we did it before, when we put it after something that was important that we wanted people to hear, I had a couple of calls from parents and grandparents saying that their child literally fell asleep in the seat. It was late. They go to school all day, they come here to be recognized. And for a child, especially younger children, that's a quite long day. So maybe we could separate into recognizing, when we recognize employees, then it really, it's not as, they've had a long day too. Sorry about that. But you're getting my point,
I
that
do,
when we
yeah.
recognize students, or children especially, the elementary age students for their art or whatever, that can be a really long night for them. So maybe doing it at the workshop, like you said earlier, or just doing them first.
Will there be any benefit to recognizing employees at the workshop earlier in the evening?
Well, like I said, they've had long days too.
Yeah.
So, that would be a viable option for me.
Splitting it in half, putting half at the workshop and half at the 7 o'clock meeting.
I'm simply offering it as a suggestion. If it's not something, if we're satisfied it's working correctly, that's fine. I just know that I have had discussions about it, just as you have, and this would be an opportunity to consider that if we choose to. Mr. Coleman.
I understand Ms. Ayers' concern about it being a long day.
Mhm.
But I also think that it's an opportunity for us to, when we've got an audience, to talk about some other things in addition to recognitions. So maybe not every meeting, but if we've got an item, like we did the budget last year before that, and I'm sorry, that's important, and you've got to stay a couple, wasn't a prolonged discussion. If we can do something in 5 or 10 minutes that's important, something, I think it's worthwhile doing before the recognition. And I don't know what we call it on our agenda, how we separate it out, but, there are things that I think deserve, that I think, one of the things that we do, one of the things that's important to us is to advocate for the school system. This is an opportunity for us to advocate for the school system. And each of us has complained either publicly or silently, or not silently, but quietly, when we have an item that parents are interested in, be it, usually it has to do with adding something to our program, we're packed. And then when we're talking about the most important things, we don't have as much participation. So I think it's wrong for us to not take advantage of opportunities when we do have parents to try to engage them more in the process, and engage them more in learning about our system. So I don't know how you balance that, but I think it's worth talking about and worth thinking about for another meeting. So I appreciate the chairman bringing it to our attention.
All right. Other thoughts, discussion on that item? It is something we could give to Dr. Jones and the staff, ask them to consider it a little bit, and bring us back some recommendations about ways we could work on the issue, if that's agreeable with you, Dr. Jones. All right. All right, so second item that I had, and these are in no particular order in terms of importance, but the second item that I had noted was, this is the first year that we really haven't done meetings at the schools. We're sort of finishing this year. It's on our calendars, and prior to this, we were having meetings at the elementary schools, at the middle schools, and the high school. I think this is an opportunity for us to discuss whether we would like to continue on this path or return to what we formerly did, and it's simply a preference, I understand, and we do have the technology associated with that. I know that there were some difficulties and challenges for staff. I don't want to create any additional challenges for them, but I think that, there was a value associated with that. So any interest in trying to do that in a different fashion?
Will our meetings be at the new facility?
Our recommendation will be is, once we move into the Pocahontas building, that we would do our meetings in that new meeting space. It's technology that we could then manage and control in a nice setting, and it would be easier for staff because it would be right where they're working, and we would have our own wireless there that would be
Helpful.
right.
So people would be able to hear from home?
Yes, and still, yep, we would still have the same capability of hearing from home, and that what we do here, we could just do there and have a little bit more control over it.
Is there a potential date when that would happen?
We are looking at, Jason, October, November, moving into Pocahontas.
I'm hopeful that maybe January will be able to move our
Okay.
first meeting there.
So maybe start the new calendar year there.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, so the next item that I had was talking about preparation for the budget process. We've talked about that on several occasions. We've attempted to sort of provide guidance to the superintendent and staff on how we'd like to and when we'd like to begin some of those discussions. I think last year we did it differently. It seemed like that worked a little better from my perspective. We started a little earlier. We had some different types of discussions. We've had a year now to think about how that went. We've seen the cycle close out with the county. Any thoughts about whether we're satisfied with that process the way that we did it last year, or is there anything that we need to do differently? Any guidance we need to provide to Dr. Jones in terms of how we would like to handle that?
I think we did better as far as knowing this superintendent and staff knowing what we were thinking or what we wanted to discuss or what we wanted in the budget by starting earlier. Is that the feedback from you, Dr. Jones, and the staff?
Yeah, I
or-
think we kind of set some goals in, I believe it was November last year or October, one of those months, of kind of what board members wanted to see and what our priorities were, and that certainly helped inform the budget process.
Rather than waiting until after you guys have done all of your work and then
Yep.
putting our input. So it's not making double the work.
Happy to add that back to the agenda.
Yes, and I-
Same time this year.
Right.
We did it last year.
Unless others feel differently. I thought that it worked pretty well. I'd like to keep it that way rather than returning to the former timeline.
I agree.
Okay? All right, those are generally the items that I had in terms of efficiency or operations. Any other items that any members would like to discuss in terms of the board's self-evaluation? Mrs. Zeman?
The General Assembly, what we want to discuss, I know that the Board of Supervisors are going to have their agenda of what they want the Senator and Senator Sturtevant and Delegate Ware to help with. Are we going to be doing the same, or is that at that meeting, or?
Yeah, that would be our opportunity to share with them at that meeting on the 18th, what we, legislative, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it on
Yeah.
our own.
And the reason that we decided to do the joint meeting with them is that we'll have the representatives there. They can hear both from the Board of Supervisors as well as from the school board. So if there are items that you would like to include as a board, I think it's important that we discuss those and be ready to share them with the senator and the delegate at that point.
So then, we usually do this every year, but our turn to do it now is next week at that meeting. Is that,
Correct.
okay?
Yep.
That's what I wanted to be sure we covered.
Do you have any idea how that's going to work formatting-wise? I would assume that they would, I would assume the senator and delegate would make brief presentations separately, and then in some fashion, discussion would take place about the priorities of the county?
Correct. I think what Mr. Voorhees and I have discussed is that each of our representatives would have a chance to talk about what they foresee happening in the General Assembly, what kind of the mood and priorities of each of those bodies are, and what they would feel like is going to require the most energy and focus for them, and then we would have the opportunity to say what's important to us and what we would like for them to do representing us, similar to what we did at our meeting last year over at, I think we met at Flat Rock with them last year.
That's right.
This is kind of short notice to pull this together. I mean, I know some of them are consistent year to year.
Right.
So those would be the obvious
Hillary.
ones, but if anybody has, maybe at the second meeting, if anybody has anything they're concerned about that they want brought up, maybe we should take them at that time.
How about Mr. Cole, your suggestion about the fees? Would that be the time to bring that up?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to do it. I know we're always concerned about salary,
Right.
and, what I'd like to see
Insurance.
from the state is a long-term commitment to salary, not this each year going back and being kind of hostage to the budget situation about what salary is going to be. I'd like to see them set a five or 10-year goal that the state is going to be at this level or aim goal for this level. To me, that makes a whole lot more sense than the way we do it right now. But I know they have their own issues to deal with, but it would be certainly a lot easier for us. And I think it's something that we're, like Mr. Walter said a minute ago, the economy's good. Our teachers need to have competitive salaries. So
I know at the conference, on the VSBA Conference on Education in July, the governor spoke. I think Valerie and I were there, and he, at that point spoke about getting our teachers up to the national average, which would be a huge increase, and doing it in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think that's the kind of long-term goal setting you're talking about, of this is where we need to be, and here's how we're going to get there over the next couple bienniums, instead of, we have the money this year, but we don't have the money next year.
I'm probably the only one that remembers when Bilal's did the 10% a year for 3 years, but, I mean, that was a long-term goal. The General Assembly committed to it, and they found funding for it.
Right.
And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that to happen in today's environment. So that's one thing I'd like to see.
All right, so this has been a discussion effectively about some of the legislative issues that are important to us in terms of a board and in your preparation for our meeting. Other items that are related to the board's self-evaluation.
I had one
Mrs.
suggestion. I think I've made this before casually in the past. I think sometimes when we email Dr. Jones, that the whole board is not included. And if we include each other on those emails, it may be something that another one of us is questioning about, and then we would all get the question and the answer at the same time. So that's something, pretty minor. But I do think, if one board member has a concern about something, I think, for one, the other board members should know. And for two, it would streamline the process for him, that if that's something, I don't know how the other board members feel about it, but that was one thing that I thought about.
Okay, good suggestion. Other topics or issues?
One
Mr.
thing
Cole.
that I'd like to see us think about is rotating the responsibilities at the different places outside the board we have. They're part of their responsibility, and you learn a lot when you serve on those boards. So I think that's something we need, that I'd like to see us at least talk about. The second thing I'd like to see us talk about.
Could I ask you just to clarify, to make sure I understand what you're talking about, our assignments on representing various committees?
When we have to serve on another board.
Okay, gotcha.
And which means that you know.
Thank you, sir.
That you have responsibilities not only to this board, you have responsibilities to another board. I would like to see us rotate that. I think it's important that everybody gets a chance to do that. I think it's important because I think it's educational. It helps us make better decisions. The second thing I'd like to see us do is, this would be something we'd have to do, Ms. Ayers is aware of the timetable better than I, is to look at our compensation. At some point, the board has to, I think it'd be good to have it on the calendar on a regular basis, whether it's over 2 years or 3 years or whenever it is that we can talk about compensation. It doesn't mean that we're going to say we're going to raise our compensation every year, but I think it's not good for us never to talk about it. And as we never talk about it, the compensation has stayed the same for how many years, Val?
A lot of years.
A lot of
Maybe-
years.
maybe
And-
15 or
And maybe
so.
that's fine, but I think the public needs to be aware of what compensation is, and the only way they're going to be aware of it is if we talk about it, and we say, this is something we also need to talk about. Part of that rotating the board pieces is, I think those people that serve on those boards ought to be compensated for it in some way. It doesn't have to be a great amount, but, you're not only responsible for this meeting and preparing for this meeting, you're responsible for preparing another meeting.
Or two.
Or two a month. And so I think there ought to be some way that, even if it's just a small amount, say if you're on that board, you get another $50 a month or another $10 a month, or whatever it is, I just think that's, I think that would be more fair, in my opinion, about it, because, and not saying that any board member's doing less, but this is an additional responsibility that you have, not only to your constituents, but it's an additional responsibility that you have to another board and every constituent that is affected by that board.
Can I ask, are you meaning just the Appomattox Governor's School and the Maggie Walker School and the Code RVA, those, or are you including the boards that we have here in the county for parents?
Well, I think the boards that all of us have on the county, all of us are part of those. So, that's a part of what we do. That's in our, that's a part of what we, in my opinion, that's something we do within our county. And as long as all of us are on those, I don't see I don't see that could be a part, to me, as a regular. So, now, I'm just saying, you're asking me for my opinion, I'm telling you
Oh,
my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, but I don't think we all are. That's,
But, so I think it's something worth talking about.
okay.
But like I said, I can only speak for the Appomattox Regional Government School. I usually go once a month, back when we were searching for a superintendent, and back when we were going twice a month, sometimes more than that.
Sometimes require more than,
Right.
than the usual,
So-
okay?
So, and it's not that I'm complaining, it's just that I think when I step off of it, I would like for somebody else to have to at least know that if we're gonna go spend 10 extra hours a month at meetings, that there may be some, there may be, may get a little bit of something to recognize that in terms of the compensation. And once again, I just bring it up as part of our board evaluation, that's something we ought to talk about. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent on tonight. I think it ought to be a part of our agenda for board evaluation.
Well, and I think that's one of the purposes of this item. So, Dr. Jones, in terms of changes in compensation, I believe I know the answer to how this process works, but we're past the point where we could do anything like that.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it's too close to the election, but certainly something that could take up with the new, or when the board is seated in January at any
If we
point.
choose to do that.
If they choose to do that, right.
But once again, I just think it ought to be a topic on your agenda for evaluation. Whether it's every 2 years or, or once every 4 years at the appropriate time. Because otherwise, we forget about it, and, you might miss a deadline if you're going to change it. And it may be no appetite for it, that's fine, but I think it ought to be discussed anyway.
All right. Other items or further discussion? All right, well, I appreciate the participation of the board members in this item. I think it was a good discussion about several interesting topics. We provided Dr. Jones with a few items that we'd like him to take a look at for us and bring back with some additional information on other things, and appreciate the board's cooperation in doing this. Next item is our closed session. What I would ask is perhaps Mr. Kunka, would you mind making the motion and reading the certification for us, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into closed session pursuant to Code 2.23711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees. Codes 2.23711A1.
And that's in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of entering into closed session, please respond with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are in closed session. Thank you very much.